If you look at the State of Entrepreneurship report for 3 years consecutively, the issue of power supply was amongst the top 5. Nigeria is the least electrified country in the world. We have over 90 million Nigerians that do not have access to electricity.
Narrowing it down specifically to MSMEs, how does energy specifically affect their day-to-day operation?
Why can't we find a way to fund that aspect of the business on a long-term basis, such that it doesn't become a recurring decimal? The proposition is that how do we now start providing financing solutions to power these businesses?
What policy priorities do you think should be at the forefront of every stakeholder involved in this business of energy? Welcome to another episode of Entrepreneurship Policy Pulse, a podcast of the Faith Institute. My name is Oluwatimilehin, Deinde-Adedeji, and I head the Policy and Stakeholder Mobilization Unit at the Faith Institute. Today, we are looking at a critical subject that affects MSMEs in Nigeria. And over the years, this has constantly affected their productivity. Particularly knowing that MSMEs power the Nigerian economy, contributing about 45% to the GDP and are responsible for over 80% of employment in Nigeria. Now, seeing their critical importance, there is still a bit of challenge that they face. And consecutively, the State of Entrepreneurship report, SOE, which we churn out every year since 2021, has highlighted energy as a major constraint to MSMEs. So today we are delving into this conversation to help us understand how this subject of energy affects MSMEs and their productivity generally in Nigeria. Joining me in today's conversation is Mr. Kolawole Osinowo. Good to have you here today, sir.
Thank you, Timlane. Good to be here as well.
Yes, and just for the audience, would you like to introduce yourself a bit?
Thank you very much. My name is Kolawole Osinowo. I'm the Senior Research Fellow at the Faith Institute. I consider myself as an SME enabler. In the last 20 years, I've been doing that, whether on the digital side, on the e-commerce side, now on the renewable energy side of things, supporting SMEs to scale and to grow.
That's awesome. Good to have you here, sir. All right. And I also see that we are going the sustainable way by the colors we've picked today.
Absolutely.
All right. So I would just like you to touch a bit on the research you conducted at the Faith Institute. Just give us a brief rundown of what inspired the research and what the research speaks to exactly.
Thank you very much. I think you used the keyword of what inspired the research. And the research was inspired by frustration. The frustration that every one of us feel today in the country. More importantly for SMEs who run businesses on a daily basis across the country. If you look at the State of Entrepreneurship report for 3 years consecutively, the issue of power supply was amongst the top 5. It's still amongst the top 5 in the last 4 years, actually. It only dropped in 2020, in the 2025 report. But it's always the top issue for a lot of SMEs when it comes to the cost of operations. Now, there are 3 levels to it, and this is what really inspired my saying, let's focus on this. Probably we'll be able to make a difference by making certain policy recommendations to the stakeholders involved. Number 1 is energy access. Nigeria is the least electrified country in the world. We have over 90 million Nigerians that do not have access to electricity. So when they shout up NEPA, when the grid goes offline, these people don't even know what has happened because they're not even on the grid. They've not experienced the grid at all. It might sound like it's a myth, but it's something that I've seen on the ground myself, working across various communities across the country. The second one is energy reliability. I hope before we finish this podcast, the power will not go off. But I know we do have backup power.
Yeah.
But in the urban areas where you have over 22 million people who also do not have access to electricity, it's even more complex because they now suffer from energy reliability issues where people are suffering from maybe they only have access to electricity for 1 or 2 hours in the day. It's that bad in some cases. For some areas in some parts of the country, they go for hours or days or months without having access to electricity. So reliability is key for certain businesses. If, for example, you're in a Ijora market in Lagos, you are running a frozen food business. If there's no energy reliability, then it becomes a problem. Then lastly is energy affordability. Even though we understand that the various stakeholders in the industry, they're trying to make sure that there's reliability, there's access, but there's also a question of at what cost. And that's where this conversation. So even if I'm able to provide electricity 24 hours, 7 days a week, at what cost? Is it affordable? So these are the three things that really inspired this paper.
The research. Okay, thank you very much, sir. So my next question to you would be that narrowing it down specifically to MSMEs within the Nigerian context, how does energy specifically affect their day-to-day operations?
Let's backtrack a bit. I mentioned three of those elements. Two of them primarily affect MSMEs, because most of the MSMEs are in the urban areas or peri-urban areas. So energy reliability and affordability is key for them. You would notice, I think it was a petroleum industry report where they said that 40% of the demand for petrol by Nigerians today is not for their cars, it's for their generators.
Yeah.
And when the grid goes down, Nigerians, everybody thinks that the whole country is in darkness. No, we just failed over to the grid that we have alternatively created. And that grid is 8 times bigger than the current grid capacity. But that comes at a cost to some people, and that's the MSMEs. So if you go to Computer Village, or you go to Beirut Road in Kano, or you go to Opiweka in Onitsha, you go to the back of the plazas, you see the thousands of, maybe not thousands, but hundreds of generators sitting at the back there. For every one of them, there's a cost to function. And that cost is almost 30-40% of the running cost of every business today. For some, that's their business relies a lot on electricity. It could go as high as 80-90% of the cost of running the business. So it's actually a cost that they should not be bearing. That could have brought the price of products down or goods and services down. But this is the weight of burden that a lot of MSMEs carry today.
All right. Thank you so much for that context. And specifically, I like the fact that you spoke to data, how that it affects about 35% of their profit. Yes. And considering that MBS has also put forward a statistics regarding about 550% increase as to petrol prices, and about 231% in electricity tariff. So now, considering that statistics, how would you now put forward the argument that solar as an alternative source would increase productivity for these businesses?
So I like to look at it from an energy transition point of view. Like I said, we have built a grid that has become an alternative to the grid. And that speaks to the resilience of Nigerians.
And just to contextualize, this grid you are speaking about are the generators that are
powered by over 20 million generators.
Okay.
Over 20 million generators, taking 40% of our petrol distribution coming from all the petrol marketers. So it's at a cost, and it's at a cost to the consumers. So this is where the energy transition needs to happen first. And the question is, how do we replace these generators with alternative? One alternative is solar, which is, for me, and that's why I find it very interesting when people say, climate change, energy transition. We are not even transiting for the purpose of climate change. We are transiting for economic reasons as well, on one side. And that's why, even though solar, I strongly believe that solar is an alternative, but we also need to look at it in context. Generally, we talk about energy mix. As a country, before we now go down to MSMEs, we need to look at the energy mix broadly. It could be from gas, it could be from hydro, then a mix of solar, and there's a lot of projects going on today. But a lot of them are just not fused together to materialize into that. We've seen some discos who are now blending mini grids as part of their energy mix. So that will change. But one interesting shift that is happening, and I think this is where the government needs to encourage, is if you look at these buildings, for example, rooftop solar would make a lot of sense. Because if, for example, I'm consuming 100 kilowatts, as an argument's sake, and I'm able to generate 50 kilowatts from solar, it means that what I would really need from the grid is just 50 kilowatts. Yeah. I've already taken 50 kilowatts coming from solar. So, and if you do more of that, we will reduce the pressure on the grid. And that's where the case for solar is very important. But again, energy affordability, is it cheap? Or is it affordable?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kola, for that context. And I see that you've repeated financing over and over again as a major constraint. So let's just delve into that for a bit. So what alternative financing approach would you consider as sustainable for these MSMEs, one considering their size and the other things that they would have to put into consideration when considering alternative power?
Okay, thank you very much. If you go back to the State of Entrepreneurship report published by the Faith Institute, you will see that access to finance is number one in the last couple of years. It has not changed. And for me, when I was digging deep into this, in this research, when you say access to finance, what exactly do you mean? And we found out that there were two major categories. One is around access to finance to purchase goods, which relates to working capital, and access to finance to manage the operations of the business. Those are the two major financing needs that most of these MSME needs. They want to buy products and they want to run their business. Where does this sit? Energy access, or energy affordability, or the power situation, where does this sit? It sits under the running the operations. So if majority of the cost of running the operations is spent on petrol, on diesel, the question is, why can't we find a way to fund that aspect of the business on a long-term basis, such that it doesn't become a recurring decimal, month on month, year on year for these businesses? And that's why I put forward the fact that we need to start looking at when we talk about, for those entities like organizations that provide MSME funding, they need to start looking at beyond just giving the cash, but also to start funding alternative source of power for these MSMEs. That way, it is more reliable, it is sustainable on the long term, and you have already taken the burden off them. So the proposition is that, how do we now start providing financing solution to power these businesses? There's been alternatives, there have been various recommendations, even current offers that exist today. One of them is hire purchase or pay as you go, or buy now, pay later, which came out as a result of necessity, where MSMEs themselves, based on their credibility, their creditworthiness, are able to secure this from either the suppliers or financing institutions. But not all of them have that creditworthiness to be able to have access to this. Most especially women as MSMEs, because of all the cultural factors that exist today. They might need, in some cases, the guarantee or guarantor to stand in for them. But this is critical to their business. So any financing solution that does not address this, then it's still, I would say it's still scratching the surface. And that's why I advance the recommendation in the policy paper and in the research that if you focus on women MSMEs, and we have seen it in the business that we run, that even if when you provide financing to women generally, and nothing against the men, but this is research that has shown where you provide financing to women, they tend to repay better and faster than the men. We can dig further as to why men are like that, maybe competing priorities and all of that. But women tend to take their business seriously and they hold it there and they repay their loans as quickly as possible. So we find them more creditworthy. So, but also you find that we also need to encourage women in business and entrepreneurship. If this would make their business to continue to run, then can we find a funding mechanism that funds that particular equipment? It could be a solar-powered productive use appliance, like a solar-powered freezer for somebody running a cooling business. It could be a solar-powered generator for somebody who wants to run a rice mill or something like that. It could be a solar inverter, anything that is solar-powered, because the sun is free, technically. And we're able to power that equipment by funding it, giving them almost very favorable financing opportunities. And one thing that I also recommended in the paper is for us to start giving what we call first loss guarantee to these women MSMEs, and I can expand on that further.
Yeah, I would like you to further expand on that, if you don't mind, just briefly, for the purpose of this conversation.
So what first loss guarantee would do is, a lot of our financial institutions, traditional financial institutions, they are used to they are very risk averse, which is understandable. We're in a very high risk environment where they look at two things: the ability to pay and the willingness to pay. In order to cover for these two elements, these two variables of the ability to pay and the willingness to pay. The ability to pay comes from the kind of businesses that they run. Are they able to generate profit and all of that? So they can assess that quantitatively. But where they have issues with is the willingness to pay, which is the risk factor. Are they even willing to pay? So in order to cover for this, some of them give very ridiculous interest rates. Some of them require a lot of guarantee in place in order to feel secure. It's just because they don't understand the impact of power on service. Even if I give an SME a loan to run the business and they're spending 30-35% of their profits on power, they will not on the long term be able to repay the loan at the end of the day. So, but if I'm able to give them something that increases their profitability, they'll be able to pay whatever financing that comes in. So that's why we are saying to the financial institutions, if we bring government in, if we bring DFIs, development finance institutions in, and we say, look, we'll give these financial institutions some bit of comfort by guaranteeing a percentage of the credit that they give to these MSMEs for specifically this equipment. Everybody gets a bit of comfort. Number one, the financing institution gets a bit of comfort that, okay, at least even if this credit is going to go bad, a certain percentage, 20-30% is already guaranteed by a development finance institution or even the government. The government is a bit more comfortable because it lowers the barrier to entry for the MSMEs. And if the MSMEs do well, they end up in the tax pool. And the government wins. The DFI also wins because they've created the impact. The MSMEs also win because the cost of the energy affordability that I talked about earlier reduces considerably because now they're only paying smaller installments over a period of time, and they're more confident to expand their business because they are now profitable. And that way, everybody wins.
Yeah, thank you for contextualizing that. And just to bring the conversation further, since you're already talking about stakeholders, and now let's delve more into the policy aspect. What policy priorities do you think should be at the forefront of stakeholders, DFIs, the government, and every stakeholder involved in this business of energy?
So first of all, let's start with because when 2 or 3 Nigerians are gathered, we talk about government.
Sure.
So we are 2 Nigerians now gathered on this podcast. So let's talk about government. So, and this is not a question of criticizing government. This is us making a policy recommendation to the government to say, look, government is the biggest spender. Government has the biggest money, even though private sector can also mobilize. If the government is able to set aside a certain fund, which I called the Women Energy Access Fund, where you're able to keep that aside and say to financial institutions, we are keeping this money either with the central bank or with the Bank of Industry, which is a development finance institution, as a first loss guarantee. And we are saying to you, under this scheme, any women-led MSME that comes to you for a renewable energy product that was going to power their business, most especially productive use appliances or productive use of power or productive use of solar, we have this fund available to you such that if they default or something happens, you have 20-30% of that loss already guaranteed. That's all we need from government as a stakeholder. That alone will mobilize the private sector to unlock funding. Let's say, for example, with BOI, they have single digits or low digit interest rate. They're able to finance these products directly. And it could be the same and they could channel that money into financial institutions and I know they've done that in the past at even zero interest to financial institutions, and they capped it. But if they now tie it directly to certain energy products, and they say it is specifically for this product and for women-led MSMEs, that should be the role of development finance institutions, and not just limited to BOI. There are also international DFIs as well that can also do this. Then the financial institutions is now for them to now to have what we call an energy desk in the financial institutions, that with people that have both financing and energy expertise to be able to sit there and assess these MSMEs and recommend them for this first loss guarantee backed credits for productive use of solar. Then the last stakeholder will be the MSMEs themselves. It means that they have to have registered businesses. It means that they have to have their books in order. And that's where the likes of Faith Foundation comes into place. As a stakeholder as well, educating these women-led MSMEs to structure their business, which Faith is already doing anyways. That way they'll be able to present themselves properly to these financial institutions.
Thank you for that. So once, say for instance, the stakeholders involved, the government, DFIs, and the MSMEs themselves have already taken into consideration all of these, and it's has taken effect. What are some of the changes or positive changes we expect to see, say, in 3 to 5 years, and what do we expect exactly?
I think what you will see, first of all, is that you would see that a lot of them will start focusing more on running their business. They will start focusing more on scaling their business. So let me give you an example, practical example that I've seen. Somebody started with one 540-liter double door freezer in Nijora for a business. You introduce them into solar-powered freezers. They expand that. And before you know it, it goes into 3 of that. And they open in the next shop, and they are thinking of, should we go out to another city That way, you've not just expanded the business, you've also created jobs for them. And they become more structured because now they will need to start talking to bigger suppliers. So the ripple effect is not just energy access, it's economic empowerment. And that is where I'm going with this. It's not, energy access is just one step. Energy reliability is just one step. The overarching opportunity that exists is the economic empowerment, economic development that follows this as well. So you're empowering the woman. She's also empowering other women, employing people. And the government likes to hear this. The tax nets widens, and there's more money for. So we have not just solved the problem of power. We've also solved the problem of formalizing small businesses. And you will see that if they said, oh, the small businesses don't like paying tax, it's not that they don't. It's just that they've not seen the benefits out of what the taxes that they've paid. And if they're able to structure it and nobody's making them to cut corners, it's very transparent. There's a system that allows them to because they know that if they are structured, they'll be able to go back to these financial institutions to increase their the size of their power
Capacity to access loans.
ability to access the credit. Let me give you an example. Here, we started maybe with maybe 20 kilowatts installation. At some point, because it was expensive to do at that time, but at some point we said, hey, it looks like we moved from, in this building, we're only 6. Today, we're over 40. And in 4 years, I mean, from 6 employees to 154 employees in less than 4 years, it shows the capacity of how a business can grow. And as our business is growing, we had to add another 30 kilowatts of solar installation. And the roof is filled with solar panels now, at the end of the day. So that is the ripple effect that you see. People that are going to install solar panels will need to create jobs for them. People that will distribute, it will create jobs for them. People that will even transport these products, it will create jobs. So job creation, economic development, economic empowerment, those are the outcomes of having reliable power.
Thank you once again, Mr. Kola. It's been an interesting conversation. And just to further reiterate the importance of power and energy, sustainable energy, in fact, within the MSME space, that it goes beyond just the powering of freezers to, I mean, it extends to the tailor who is able to deliver on time.
Even to the farmers as well.
To the farmers who are able to store up their produce and all of that. And like you rightly mentioned, the ripple effect is seen in the economy, and even the governments will get their own return. So it's been an interesting conversation, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Policy Pulse. And we hope that when next we call you, that you would be here and that you would yield our call. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So thank you for listening. It's been an interesting conversation delving into the subject of energy conversation, particularly for MSMEs. Just like the report Mr. Kola referenced, you can access it at thefaithinstitute.org/research. I'm sure you'll find other useful research there as well. And to our stakeholders, we hope that this episode has been worth your while and it improves the policy process for you as well. Once again, my name is Oluwatimilehin Deinde-Adedeji, and this is Entrepreneurship Policy Pulse. Thank you.